As we gather here today, the world is facing an unprecedented demand for critical minerals, essential components in the production of renewable energy technologies, electric vehicles, and advanced electronics. Central Asia, with its vast reserves of critical minerals such as nickel, cobalt, copper, zinc, uranium, and rare earth elements, is poised to become a cornerstone of global supply chains. The Middle Corridor, a key transit route connecting East and West, offers unparalleled opportunities for transporting these vital resources to international markets. This strategic trade route has the potential to unlock new economic opportunities, foster regional cooperation, and drive sustainable development in the region. In this conference session, sponsored by Tethys Trans-Eurasian Gateway, we have gathered an esteemed panel of senior officials from the UK, Uzbekistan, Tajikistan, and Turkey, who will share their insights on the challenges and opportunities in establishing a sustainable and efficient mining ecosystem in Central Asia. Our panelists will discuss the latest developments in the region, including the potential for growth and development, the importance of sustainable and responsible mining practices, and the role of international cooperation in supporting the energy transition.
So entertainment after lunch falls on me. Critical raw materials and entertainment. I don't know about that, but we'll give it a try. Listen, first of all, the delegation from Uzbekistan passes along their apologies. They were going to be here with a fairly big delegation, but there's some meetings going on at the presidential level for 2030 strategy, so it dragged on a bit. So unfortunately, they're not here. But I will be presenting the value proposition of Uzbekistan when it comes to critical raw materials, and a company that has been given the responsibility to develop these critical raw materials. But before that, I'd like to introduce my panel, starting with you. If you could, Vice Minister, please. Tell a bit about your role and what you're going to be presenting.
Thank you, Han. I'm Aziz Nazar, Deputy Minister of Industry and New Technology of the Republic of Tajikistan. So I will, first of all, thank you very much for inviting us to this kind of platform, and as well as sharing our thought and brief about the investment and mining sector of Tajikistan. So today I will go to present a brief information and some details about the potential of cooperation in the mining and infrastructure sector of Tajikistan. Thank you.
Thank you, Deputy Minister. Oliver?
Thank you. I might not stand up because I'm quite tall and this mic is quite small. I'm Oliver Richards. I'm the head of the Critical Minerals and Mining team at the Department of Business and Trade here, so the UK representative on this panel. I'll say something shortly about that and a bit about how we're working with the region as well.
Thank you, Oliver. And our entertainment starts. I'd like to do something different. So we have only the three of us here. So I think this is an opportunity perhaps to moderate among us on some of the items that topics that we discussed today. Early on, there was a professor from University of Bath. He talked about criticality. So I think it's an interesting topic. So critical raw materials, there seems to be a sense of, if we call it critical, it's important, so it will happen. And then there's strategic raw materials. So if it's strategic, it's more important than critical. So, you know, it's probably going to happen faster. Does it? Think about that, and I'll come back to you after the session is done. We talked about finance. Where's the equity? We talk about finance, most of the discussion is on the debt side. Most of the discussion is on debt-like instruments. Most of the discussions on how governments could support. Where's the equity side? We have a representation from London School, from LSE. How how familiar are you with the PNAV fundamentals if you're listed? Where's the equity? So let's think about these as we come to the end. What I'm going to be presenting to you today is a jurisdiction that I'm very excited about. This is a jurisdiction that has recognized the supply-demand fundamentals in the critical raw materials, which I'm not going to get into. I think we have heard enough that it is critical, it is strategic, we need it, but how do we get there? So here's a jurisdiction that is extremely focused in providing on the demand side, global demand side, by doing something about it. And they have generated, I think, a remarkable vision that I want to talk to you about a bit. So ultimately, Uzbekistan, with the vast amount of resources, not gold, not copper, you already know about that. But on the critical raw materials, because the potential exists there, they formed a company in May of 2024, this year, and it's called TMK. It's basically Uzbekistan Metal and Technological Complex, and I'll tell you why it's not called a mining company. Here's another question for you. Critical raw materials. It seems to me that we just don't want to use the word mining. Let's just come up with a term that mining is not let's call it minerals. Why is that? So this company has been formed by the president in line with his vision, and it's truly a vision. So he issued a presidential decree where all of the critical raw material assets have put under TMK, and the TMK has the responsibility to develop these assets. And I'll tell you a little bit about what those assets are. Uzbekistan, like many other countries, developed nations, interestingly, EU, US have formed MOUs to work in developing these critical raw materials to provide for the developed nations. And the Uzbeks have recognized and embraced that to develop these assets, they do have to embrace international standards. And I don't just mean the JORCs, the 43101s, or the ESG principles, but international business standards. That's where it starts. The country is going through a transformation in the last 7 years, has, I think, accomplished tremendously in the, when you look at it, less than a decade, is still on that path. They know where the gaps are, and they're looking for advice in capturing those international business standards. But if you look at the potential of the country, China will always be dominant. But as far as the quantity in the different types of commodities, I think Uzbekistan has the potential to become a viable alternative. TMK, it's not a mining company. It uses its mining assets to develop metal, and from metal, it develops end products that are being sold to developed nations. So it's a fully integrated company on the upstream mining assets, on the midstream metal production, and on the downstream, the end products used for advanced technologies. They also recognize, again, the ESG principles is extremely important, particularly on the G side, going through a transformation, adapting, implementing international business standards is of top and utmost priority for them. The vision, in short, well, first of all, I think you'll all agree, if you don't have a vision and a mission statement, you may be lost in the dark room. So the vision is clear and the mission is clear. The vision is to become a global hub on critical raw materials because the potential is there. And the mission is recognizing that this is an important initiative And this initiative is welcoming international partners to do it together because the world needs it. So this is not about, whether it's critical or strategic, or whether this really is needed for the electrification or green energy. We all know that. But this is doing something about it. Projects have already been identified throughout the country. All of these assets are under TMK. Explorations have been completed. The country still has the old Russian standards, and right now is in the process of converting those into our JORC compliant reports. So these projects that you see with different commodities, that some of them, quite honestly, I've never heard of before, but it is quite important for the industry. They will be going through a staged DFS process in 2025 and 2026. So what does that mean, stage process? Once the maiden resource is defined in accordance with JORC standards, rather than going through a pre-feasibility and a DFS, we're going to go through a DFS with a stage approach where during certain milestones, there will be go, no-go decisions. Because as you can see, we're not talking about one project, but there's already defined 8 projects. TMK also recognizes, interestingly, that you can't really develop these commodities without an R&D, because some of them, particularly the ones that are listed on this slide, are byproducts of either copper, zinc, and being a byproduct, you need to increase recoveries to be able to commercialize it. To increase the recoveries, you need R&D. On top of that, because of the advanced technologies, requires high purity, so they have an R&D process going on for increasing the purities. This was even before I got there. This is how visionary they are. They recognize that there needs to be an R&D component, and there is a department that is extremely well educated on this area, and they're having collaborations with Koreans and Japanese in developing a strong R&D component associated with the enterprise. Here's another idea. This again, I had nothing to do with it. They also realized that you can have an R&D facility, but what is an R&D facility if you don't have a lab? So they looked at the market conditions. They looked at Uzbekistan, but put Uzbekistan aside. They looked at globally, and there is not a nano-analytical laboratory that is essential for these commodities anywhere in the world. So they're going to be building a nano-analytical laboratory in 2026 that services all of the elements that needs to be tested. Again, TMK is not a mining company. TMK is the company that's going to provide for the CRM that the globe needs. And these are all of the rest of the projects that are coming from behind, all greenfield in different areas. Well, nobody talks about finance, so here it is. This is where the commitment comes from. So recognizing that you can't do this all with international financing, so they're putting skin in the game of $200 million have been dedicated with the Uzbek Fund for Reconstruction. And this fund is the equity component for all of these projects. Is it enough? No, it is not enough. But it is better than nothing, which most mining companies, junior, don't have. So this is also the commitment to provide the financing, particularly the equity component of the financing that the projects needs. But again, I'll welcome you. I mean, I've given you too much information in a very short period of time, and I know in your mind you have this question. Can you do it all? I know you have that question. I had that question as well. But what I can tell you is, let's sit down and talk about it. Let me explain to you the strategy. Let me explain you to the tactical plan associated with all of those projects. And if you're convinced that this could be done, join us in this journey. Because we recognize that partnership, but when I say partnership, 2 + 2 = 22. If we can establish that type of a partnership, we'll do something about what the globe needs rather than talking about it. The potential is there. But thank you for your attention. So, Vice Minister.
Start.
Tajikistan, with 93% of its landscape covered by mountains, reaching up to 7,500 meters, boasts some of Central Asia's most breathtaking natural beauty. The country's diverse climate and terrain fuel a unique biodiversity and abundance of mineral resources, giving Tajikistan a natural competitive advantage in sectors such as renewable energy, mining, and metallurgy. Among the priorities of the country's leadership is the development of Tajikistan's unique hydropower potential. With the capacity to generate 527 billion kilowatt-hours of electricity annually, Tajikistan ranks 8th globally and first in Central Asia for hydropower production, providing over 60% of the region's water resources. Despite regional and global challenges, Tajikistan has maintained economic growth averaging over 7% annually for the past decade. The government of the country has developed the 4th national strategy for accelerated industrialization, with mining sector being one of the country's key industrial drivers. In addition to its scenic landscapes, Tajikistan holds substantial mineral deposits. It ranks among the world's most resource-rich regions for critical minerals needed in high-demand sectors. Mining now constitutes for over 30% of the country's industrial output, up from just 5% in 1991. With over 800 deposits and occurrences, 100 are currently active, extracting more than 50 types of minerals, including gold, silver, lead, copper, antimony, tin, tungsten, mercury, fluorspar, graphite, lithium, and other minerals and rare earth metals such as gallium and germanium, which are found in our zinc ores. Tajikistan possesses with 10 different types of metals that are on the list of priority critical minerals of China, the European Union, and the United States. Antimony. Tajikistan ranks 3rd in Asia for proven reserves and are estimated at over 1.5 million tons. However, with more occurrences that are currently in place, this figure is to be recalculated. Silver. Home to Central Asia's largest silver deposits, including the unique Big Konimansur deposit, which has also traces of different elements in it. Bismuth, tungsten, and gold. Significant reserves are located in key mining regions such as Karamanzar, Central Tajikistan, and the Pamirs. Tungsten reserves are estimated at 150 million tons. Nickel, cobalt, and lithium. Recently discovered reserves that align with the European Union, United States, and China's critical minerals list, offering strong potential for growth. Lithium carbonate production facility is already in works, with production inception to be set for next year. There are currently 10 different occurrences of lithium deposits in the country. Central Asia contains approximately 38.6% of the world's manganese reserves, of which Tajikistan accounts for about 270 million tons, 20% of lead, and nearly 1 billion tons of bauxite reserves. Green energy capacity powers large-scale industries, including the Tajik aluminum company Talco and the Zarafshan joint venture. Both are certified by TÜV Austria for compliance with international green standards. Talco has become one of the top 5 producers of green aluminum worldwide. In 2023, a unique metallurgical enterprise was created in Tajikistan on the basis of the Zarafshan joint venture for the production of cathode copper obtained from gold ore concentrate using green technology with the use of autoclave oxidation. An important component of the strategic development of the mining and metallurgical industry of Tajikistan is the implementation of measures to develop new deposits, including the creation of Tajikistan's National Center for the Study of Strategic Resources, which will offer streamlined access to geological data for investors, enabling rapid development of new deposits. The government has established an investor-friendly framework with a unique mechanism for investment agreements, supported by Tajikistan's membership in the International Investment Guarantee Association and the International Convention on the Settlement of Investment Disputes. With a young workforce, due to 70% of the population being under 30, Tajikistan is primed for growth in sectors critical to the global transition to a green economy. The country's energy and mining sectors work in synergy to reduce CO2 emissions and support sustainable economic development. Tajikistan aims to lead the transition to a green economy in Central Asia with a focus on sustainable industrial practices and environmental responsibility. With robust hydropower, abundant mineral resources, and a strategic approach to economic development, Tajikistan is poised for significant contributions to global environmental goals and amelioration of long-standing issues. Invest in Tajikistan. Welcome to Tajikistan.
Thank you for your attention, and let me start by thanking our organizers and partners for inviting us, and of course for giving us this opportunity to introduce our potential of cooperation and potential of investment in Tajikistan. So this short video was brief about the investment opportunities in Tajikistan that covered almost like all the priority areas of cooperation, starting from the green energy, hydropower energy, mining sector, and other sectors that is mostly focused by the government of Tajikistan in the industrial sector. So as you have seen, Tajikistan is endowed with the critical with the natural minerals and resources that is under the current ongoing strategy or under the development. So the government is paying more attention now to the further developing of the industry sector, including the mining sector. So we have announced, the government of Tajikistan announced the industrialization policy as the 4 strategic goals of the country. So today, as we are going to present the mining, mostly the mining sector, I will touch only the key indicators of the retail sectors. So Tajikistan, in terms of green energy, has produced 98% of the energy through the hydropower energy, because 92% of the territory is mountains and only the 7% is flat. So we still so far reached only 6% of our energy implementing the hydro energy projects. So this also gives a good profit to the industry sector of Tajikistan to produce green energy, green products, as well as receiving the green certificate from the leading European and other institutions, green certificate in order to export the product without having the tax carbon exemption. So annually, the government is providing the growth for the economy. His average is 7%, and in terms of industry, we are within our state programs and industrialization strategy, providing that 20% of the growth in the industry sector. The green energy, as I have mentioned, almost providing. We now on the final phase of implementing one of the biggest hydropower energy in Tajikistan, which calls Rogun, and this also implementing with the strong support of our partners, including the international financial institutions. The country has all the critical metals and minerals, which is listed in the list of our priority partners. Out of 12 critical minerals, Tajikistan has 10, and 6 are under production. The mining sector so far has 800 deposits, and 100 deposits are under exploration, which produce almost 50 types of different minerals and materials. And so far, the geological survey for the mining sector has been done up to 6 to 7%, and these give a good case to work strongly with the partners in order to further develop the mining sector and discover the sector with in order to produce the final products. This is the list of minerals and materials that Tajikistan mountains has from the periodic tables. The share of mining and metallurgical industry of Tajikistan is every year is growing at the average of 7%, and the last year it was about 30%, and we are aiming to double it by the within the initiative of industrialization policy of the country. By 2026, we are aiming to double the gross share of the mining sector in the total growth of the industry. So there are other opportunities for Tajikistan, like GSP Plus of the European Union, as well as the GSP Plus of the Britain, that allows our private sector to export the products with the with exemption of the tax duty. And also, Tajikistan has joined the newly established EU critical raw materials that later enshrinked with the US initiative into the MSP, Mineral Security Partnership. So Tajikistan has participated in the first session that took place in Brussels this year. So we are going to provide all our opportunities and open up the profile of the mining sector to all our partners in order to jointly develop this sector. So Tajikistan offers the wide opportunities to all partners in order to jointly implement the initiatives and joint projects in the mining sector. So the first International Mining and Metallurgical Forum that has been held recently in Tajikistan has clearly shown that how Tajikistan is welcomed by the international partners, where the 200 leading mining sector participated in our forum, and we are aiming to arrange the second forum this year. So we will rely on our partners from the mining active members of the mining sector, as well as planning to arrange the next forum with the support of MINEX in Tajikistan. So this was a brief presentation. I do hope that there will be a Q&A session where we can give details about the interested questions in the mining sector of Tajikistan. Thank you.
Any questions? Then I'll get to questions. So before some questions to the Deputy Minister, just a question to you guys. So do you think accessing critical raw materials is on the right path? Well, let me give you the goal. The goal is 2030, 2050 climate goals. Do you think we're going to reach 2030? Do you think we're going to reach 2050? Yes, there's a yes on there is hope on 2050, but is there any hope on 2030? So, I'm sorry?
Get a long way there.
Yeah.
People that get too fixated about being at the goal rather than being on the path.
Do you think the energy sector realizes how critical these raw materials are for achieving those goals? Do you think in COP29 there was any talk about critical raw materials? Do you think the industry, while establishing those 2030, 2050 goals, have addressed the critical nature of the metals? I mean, am I missing something here, guys? Because I mean, I haven't been to COP29. I was going to go to Baku, and these conflicts, I couldn't go. But it seems to me that there are these goals that I agree on. I mean, I'm not going to go into a discussion about climate change, but hey, I support those goals. But I think there is an element that is missing that nobody talks about, which is the metal that is needed to go through the transition. I mean, everybody, how many studies have you read that the demand on the critical raw materials is going to be 10 times, 20 times, 30 times? Hey, okay, I've read enough. I understand the demand is going to be higher. How many studies have you read on the supply side? So let me ask you the question, Oliver, what do you think? Okay, is there something missing here? Am I missing something here? I mean, these have been defined as critical, particularly for the energy transition. But the energy transition leaders are not talking about the critical raw materials. What am I missing?
Thanks. I was just wondering if there's someone over there who could throw that tough question to. I mean, I think there are some answers. I mean, slightly to challenge what you're saying. I did some of my own research on what happened at the G7 this year. I found that there was 6 references in the leaders' statement to critical minerals in that group. Came up again in the G20. So it's there, I think. You look at some of the major players, you look at the US government going through transition at the moment, but they make statements about this as well, and watch this space from our government too. In the next couple of days, we'll have more to say, hopefully. But I think the other side of your point is equally valid, right? Which is that we don't actually have a fully clear pathway to how we're going to produce what we think are the minerals we need for the future. And so part of that, I think, is around investment, right? It's that do the economics of these projects actually work? The price of these commodities going up and down like a yo-yo, mostly down half the time. So for investors, this is a kind of tricky thing to get involved in. And you could just put it into a tracker fund and probably make more money. This is kind of a scenario, right? So there's a bit of that going on. I think that we all have a role to play, and particularly for us in the UK, thinking about the strength of the markets here, whether we could put something around that. And then but I think we have to think creatively as well. This is a mining conference, right? So we talk about mining, but also actually metals can be recycled, right? And I think there's a huge potential in that space as well. So back to the comment 2030, 2050, I think it's going to be a bumpy ride, but actually history tells us that we have a kind of a way of adapting and meeting that demand using all of the different resources that we have. So what am I saying? I think I'm not.
You're hopeful.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. So let me ask you another question. Okay. So these metals have been defined as critical and strategic, not by the private enterprises. So they've been defined as critical by the states, right? The countries. So they're critical to the countries, to the development of the continued development of these countries, but the finances are expected to be delivered from the capital markets. So if they're critical to a nation, shouldn't the nation be funding these projects?
Yeah. To the extent that we need to, I think, we're living in certainly the UK in tight fiscal times, so we have to think about how we deploy the resources that we have. I think actually there's a good story for us to tell on that. Our National Wealth Fund has already invested in domestic projects here. They do so to crowd in private capital. Sometimes it's just that signal of a government equity investment in a project that's enough to win the private sector over. So I think that's a method. And other countries have much larger funds, but you have to question whether those funds were used wisely. I think the real solution here is how can you how can you put just enough skin in the game as a government to bring in the private markets, right? Yeah. So
thanks for look. The intent is not to put you in a spot. It's not an easy question to answer. But I think when we talk about these commodities, and if you look at the capital markets, there's not a lot of level of interest in the capital markets to invest in these commodities, right? So if they're critical to the nations, perhaps as the project finance subject matter experts, we need to think about some other formulas. The traditional formula, I don't think, is going to work here. Vice Minister, I mean, I'm sure you have some challenges on the financing side. So what is your expectations?
Thank you, Hen. So first of all, I would like to mention that the ongoing projects in the mining sector of Tajikistan giving a good hope for us to see the bright future. This is the first. The second one is, of course, the role of the government in our case is giving the incentives and preferences, and of course, open up all the market within that potential that is existed in the mining sector of Tajikistan. And this is the second. The third one is based on those green initiative that the government of Tajikistan is keeping for the last 3 decades. We, although 98% of the energy is produced in Tajikistan within the hydro energy, but we have the new initiative to reach the zero emission by 2037. So all these green initiatives will give a good opportunity for both the government and the private sector to further develop the mining sector and also support our partners with the metals and minerals that are needed for the green transition. So far we are reaching a good level of cooperation, and the past forum that I have mentioned, Tajikistan, gave us a good contracts, both with the private sector and the government of Tajikistan, as well as one of our joint Tajik and foreign company, almost supplying 45% of the antimony market in Europe. With the same way, we do believe that there are some other opportunities that Tajikistan have to be in the priority, or maybe be as a to be given some attention by the other transnational companies. And the last point is, of course, the most important thing is financing. But before that, it is to have the potential. Where is the potential of cooperation? There will always followed by the the financing, as well as the exchange of technology. This is what we see. This is what we are discussing with our foreign partners, including the international financial institutions, as well as transnational companies that are reaching to join Tajikistan in the not only in the mining sector but in the industry at all. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions? Yes.
What governments do?
Microphone, please.
So my question is, what can governments do to divert money that's already in the mining sector, which is, for example, going into mining gold, which obviously provides debt for them, but doesn't, produce another electronic vehicle? How do we shift the government priorities when it comes to which projects we're actually prioritizing in the sector, and how do we get away from gold?
Does anybody want to answer that? It's a good question. But I'll give it a go. So I think that you've touched on two very different things, right? So a gold mining company is a gold mining company. So if most of the gold mining companies are traded in the public markets, So you buy their stock. If they invested in germanium, okay, you may think that they're losing focus, which most institutional investors will penalize the company for that and may start to sell the share, then the share will go down. So as far as the private enterprises are concerned, they're driven by the capital markets as to which direction they need to go. As far as the governments are concerned, well, there's, like Oliver was saying, there's funds there, limited amount of funds, but when it becomes critical to the nation's security, growth, whatever you want to call it, then part of those funds, in my mind, needs to be dedicated because you told us that it's critical. And if you expect that criticality to be addressed on the financial side by the capital markets, let me ask you something. Would you buy the share of a germanium company? Okay, that's the question. So that's what the capital market is. It's not, there's not an easy answer, but I think the answer lies in us getting together and recognizing that there is a financial issue here, and the traditional way of approaching it, I don't think is going to solve it. If it is, there's people that are a lot smarter than me on the financial side. I'm looking for answers. Artem, my close friend here this morning, said, a deal gets financed. A deal is a journey. Do we have the time for that journey? And he is focused on copper. Is there a good deal on titanium, tantalum, uranium, tellurium, indium, graphite, germanium? Is there a good deal there? But yet we need them. I know I didn't answer your question, but it's the finance problem is there, and you know, smart people, a lot smarter than me, needs to get together and come up with a solution. Any other questions? I mean, we do have another 5 minutes. Yes, please.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, just you asked a question there, is mining, or what should we be focusing on? But I'm Edmund Sides from Deputy Chair Crisco, the reporting standards. But one thing that strikes me with a lot of these critical raw materials, we never actually report a resource, a reserve in the mine, because some of them, like we've heard already, gallium, germanium, they come out in the copper smelter or the zinc smelter. Now, my question to the audience would be, you know, should we be more focused on investing on copper and zinc smelting in Central Asia rather than over-focus on the mine? Because if the smelter's there, it'll produce the critical raw materials and it'll encourage more companies to develop. And, you know, again, you can be a hub for the region for, say, copper smelting or zinc smelting.
I think that's a great way of looking at it. You're right. On some of these metals, they are byproducts of copper. They are byproducts of zinc, but graphite isn't, right? So there are some elements that they do require to be the predominant primary commodity. I have a question. I mean, if you want to answer that, but then I have a follow-up question for you.
Just short thoughts. So I do believe that there should be no any limitation. I just say limitation or scope of limitation for the cooperation, because where is the minerals or the materials in any part of the world, if there will be a cooperation, that should be open up. So our country is open to work with any reliable partners in order to further extract the materials and minerals in order to supply this green transition of the world. So we know that the future of the technologies will be relied on the further progress of the extraction of the critical minerals. So that's why if this establishment of the EU critical raw materials, or the MSP, is aimed to bring
Unknown
into the one table
is now
all the I do believe that this kind of platforms of MSP and the EU critical raw materials will give definitely the same question in order to involve all the engaged parties in order to implement one goal and to reach and supply the demands of each partners in this platform. Thanks.
Vice Minister, I have a question for you. You obviously represent a country that also has vast amount of resources, at least the potential for it. What is your expectations from the international community as a country that has these vast resources?
Thank you, Hen. It is a good question. So it is actually the main the goal of our participation in the today MINEX event. So our expectation is, of course, to see our partners in the implementation of all our potential of cooperation in the mining sector, as well as in others. Priority sector of Tajikistan. So based on those cooperation that we already taking into the process, it shows that we can make a future development or progress, having the strong cooperation with our partners. So these should include the financial support, of course, although there is much more company raised or developed their capital being in Tajikistan or working in Tajikistan, the mining sector. So financial support will be also as a priority. And the second one is, of course, the exchange of knowledge and technology. This is the second, because as I mentioned during my presentation, this sector has not developed so far by 6 to 7%. So there is much more areas or projects are waiting for new exploration and the cooperation. And of course, the third one is to use maximum of use of these platforms of cooperation that is being to be opened for us, like MSP and other same the platforms. And the fourth, of course, we are also having on our program to establish much more laboratories on making the study of or making the future research in the mining sector, because geological survey or study in Tajikistan has been done like in the past, and we are planning based on the requirement of our strategy to make a new research and of course a new study, geological study, in order to update all the information that is existed to us. So these are the 4 points that we focus and bring into the table of negotiation to with all our partners.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Our time is up. Yes, go ahead, please.
Thank you. Chris Lofthouse. I work with Oliver at the Department for Business and Trade. I think this question's primarily for Han, related to previous questions we've had, but I can see the TMK company has quite a diverse range of commodities that you have interest in. So do you have any prioritization in terms of which commodities and which projects you're pushing forward first? What is your strategy for making that happen?
You see, I told you, I said, you're thinking that, you probably don't have a strategy. You probably are going to try to do all of them. That's the question that I was expecting. Yes, we do, but let's have a meeting afterwards, and I'll meet with you separately, because I don't want to take everybody's time. You're absolutely right. If you don't have a strategy, and if you don't have a tactical plan, then it will be great on piece of paper. But what I will also like to leave you with, and I'll answer your question after the session here. So the questions that I asked, look, I'm not negative about this at all. I'm just sharing with you some challenges to get you engaged. Look, I've been in this business for I don't know, long, and quite honestly, I was not excited about critical raw materials. I was a bit resentful. The energy side is saying we need critical raw materials, and they're not doing anything about it. And I'm telling you, towards the end of my career, I've never been excited this much with this company and this vision and the strong leadership of TMK under his name is Farhad Abdullayev. There is a plan. There's a strong strategy. There's a tactical plan. and there's a commitment on the financial side. So this will happen, and he chose me as his advisor. So this brought excitement towards the end of my career. So join us. Let me explain to you why I'm excited. And I think if you see the business case, I think you'll become a partner. Thank you.